Hey guys, it's Dee Dee from Healthy Hearing Loss. I am going back to school. So this is the second video that I have created or am creating to talk about going back to school with hearing loss. So stay tuned. I have enrolled in the Psychiatric Mental Health Nurse Practitioner program. It's a postgraduate program, and I was accepted a few weeks ago. I had shared that in my last video, and I am actually just taking one course right now, which is my psych pharmacology, just for the summer. It's a really fast class, 7 weeks long. I think I started it 3 weeks ago, and I'm going to share some strategies that I've developed to help me go forward when I actually start the program in September. Now, going back to school is always terrifying, especially for somebody who has hearing loss, because there's just a lot to think about. Can I hear? Am I able to process all the information that they provide appropriately, especially if there's audio without captioning? I'm hoping to be able to share my experiences and some challenges as I navigate through this program in hopes to help somebody out there in cyberspace if you're considering or contemplating going back to school. In my last video, I talked about 3 things that I did already to prepare a little bit for this class. And the first thing is I got clear mask, which I'll show you a picture here of me in that video. And the second thing was I made an appointment with my audiologist to talk about microphones. And then the last thing I did was dropping a couple letters for reasonable accommodation, which I think are super important to have that option if you need that. So you can go back and look at that video if you want some ideas. I want to point out the importance of technology. So I went to my audiologist last week and So I went to my audiologist last week and I brought my Roger Select device, which is sort of an assistive device that you put on the table, and it has 6 microphones. It's flat in the middle of your table, say, and you have people that are around the table. This will be able to pick up everybody's voice and transmit it here and right to my hearing aid. I was unable to pair it to my hearing aid, and the reason is because it's not compatible with my new hearing aids. So we're waiting for an adapter or a receiver of some sort, and when that comes in, I will tell you about that. So right now I am not connected to this, so I won't talk any more about that. But the one thing that my audiologist did give me was the partner mic. And this is what it looks like. It's pretty small, right? If I compare it to the Roger Select, you can see the difference. This one's actually thicker, but it's, more narrower, and it's meant to be able to put on somebody's shirt. Like that, and it's essentially just picks up their voice and brings it right to my hearing aid. And I wouldn't wear it on myself like this, that'd be silly, right? But I would give it to my patient, or I would give it to my preceptor or my professor, whoever is speaking at a distance. I don't usually use a microphone in clinic because I'm in an exam room with the door shut. It's relatively quiet, and it's just one-on-one with me and my patient, and so I don't really need a microphone. But I'm going to try this in clinic to see if there's any difference, just because I've never tried it. And I wonder if it's going to help me with my listening fatigue. Who knows? I mean, everybody's still wearing the mask. It's still mandatory in my clinics. I don't have my facial expressions in my lip reading, and I've kind of adapted and got used to it, so I'm able to hear fine. I'll do a review of this at a later time. I'm going to just show you the box so you can see the actual name of it. Partner mic. Okay, so those are the technologies that I think it's super important to consider when you're going back to school. Now, I had to write a lot of stuff down because I tend to talk a lot in my videos, and I wanted to make sure that we stayed on track here. All right, so one of the things I wanted to kind of talk about, if you do not have Bluetooth hearing aids, I would highly recommend that you go back to your audiologist and see if there's like some sort of a streamer or a neck loop that can connect your hearing aids via T-coil. Of course, you have to have that activated. The only way you're going to know any of those things is to talk to your audiologist who actually bought your hearing aids for you. That comes to think of it, last week I was talking to one of my patients that I had sent for a hearing test. The patient ended up going to a different location than I had recommended he go to, and I'm sending him to an ENT doctor office that has an audiologist on staff, and I really wanted a comprehensive hearing test. But they ended up going to another one, which was a hearing aid specialist office. I'm not going to say the name of it because that would be rude of me to do that on a video on cyberspace, but they went to that and they got just a very basic hearing test and were told that the hearing aids were going to cost over $7,000 and that there was a payment plan, and luckily the patient did not go ahead with it. He was like, nope, I'm going to go and get a second opinion. I'm like, I'll tell you where to go. Please go to this place. You have to be super careful with buying hearing aids through anybody that has not done a full comprehensive hearing test. I find it extremely important to do a full comprehensive hearing test, as I mentioned. I would recommend checking out Dr. Cliff AUD. There's a couple of videos he talks about best practices, and I'm a firm believer of that too, because we have best practices where I work as a nurse practitioner, and I really, I try not to cut any corners. No, I don't cut any corners. That's what I try not to do. And there's many people that will because they either overworked or overtired or whatnot. I think it's important for people who are going to clinics to be sure to get the right professional that is going to be actually testing your hearing. As far as getting the hearing aids after the fact, I still think you should go through your audiologist because they'll be able to program it and do any of these extra things with you and talk about all kinds of options to make you hear better in any environment. So please go to your audiologist, okay? Now, I am a practicing nurse practitioner right now. I work in a very busy clinic. I had to learn to kind of shift my brain a little bit because I know a lot as a nurse practitioner, but I don't know a lot about psychiatric nurse practitioners and what they do. I have to get out of my own head and forget that I know anything. So becoming a student again is quite the challenge, but it's exciting at the same time. I don't have to kind of just rely on that provider that I am. I can just be a student, me, right? Brand new student, yay. Back to school, here I go. I'm already ready with all my textbooks and references and notebooks and all kinds of stuff. There you go. So that's what that is. I also have a bunch of other stuff going on. I have flashcards going on. I have an iPad over here, which I'm using as my note thing. I have my laptop, my computer. Why am I telling you this? Because when I think about going back to school, the first thing I did was I looked at it from afar. I looked at it, step back and look at the whole picture. See, like a camera, like taking a picture or a video. You're going to take a wide angle shot to develop that established shot. Right? So essentially you are establishing yourself as a student. The books, the computer, the papers that you're going to need, the index cards, the microphones, everything from afar. I have it all laid out. Now, once I have all that taken care of, I can then start to narrow my view and start focusing on specific areas that need more attention. That's when you get to that medium angle shot, I guess. And then eventually it's going to be getting down into nitty-gritty detail, narrowing down to a close-up shot. So thinking about that when you step back, because it's a process to learn. We're not going to know everything. Like I said, I had to get out of my own head and become a student first. I had to become a student first. So let's look at everything first and then just slowly over time start to take things in as I narrow slowly over time until I get to a point where I get to details where I should know the stuff, but I really won't know it until I go into practice. Point of this was anytime you go back to school, you gotta get into the mindset. Now we looked at the whole wide view. Now let's narrow in a little bit. So I went on to the computer to look at the software that they use, the online platform that they use for teaching. And I essentially just went on there to look at how they were going to be presenting the information to me. The first thing I noticed is that they have a PowerPoint that has audio file embedded into the PowerPoint. So I would hit the presenter mode and it would go enlarged into the screen or widescreen, and then the audio would automatically start playing. And the second option or second source that they had, there was a presenter they recorded. So they had a presentation that they converted to a PDF file and then a separate audio that goes with it, and you open up the PDF and then you play the audio separately. This test terrible because you never know where they are in the PowerPoint because you're scrolling trying to figure out what they're talking about, because they don't say go to page 2 or go to page 3. No, they just keep talking and talking, so you're scrolling trying to reference what they're talking about, whatever. Those two options, neither one of them has captioning or subtitles. What I found in the former PowerPoint, with the audio embedded, if I didn't hit the presenter mode and just kept it at a regular mode and just hit the audio on it, there was actually transcripts in the notes, so I could look at that. Something like that is super helpful for somebody who has hearing loss, because that's kind of like captioning when you have transcripts like that. But it's also good for studying notes and exam references. It's super important to have that information. And then of course they had a couple of primary sources, secondary sources, and then there was a couple more things. What did they do? Some very important websites that I can use in reference during the program as well as in practice. And if I know there were a couple of YouTube videos that had captioning, that was really, really good. And then of course after reviewing everything, so I'm still in this kind of like not so wide, but a little bit closer, looking at the details, trying to figure out now, is the information that they're presenting good enough for me? I'm so selfish, I know, but we have to be selfish when we're learning. We need to learn, right? We can't be worried about people thinking we're selfish or something. So we're getting a little bit closer into the details. We know that some things were not perfect, and now we're going to start looking at what I could do to narrow my view a little bit more and start finding the information and sources that I'll be able to understand better than what they're presenting. So the first thing I go to is I look for visual animations. Now I'm big on visual animations. There are a lot of people who are, because I love all those drawings things, and it ties the information to what you're reading or what they're presenting, that type of thing. And there are a couple different YouTube channels that are pretty good sources, and one of them is MedCram. Second one that I looked at was Memorable Psychiatry and Neurology, and then the third one was Speed Pharmacology. So these are different kind of videos that I could watch where they have animations, I can get captioning, and the speaker is slow, not slow, but very fluent and well educated, and doesn't talk so much terminology that it makes you get lost in thinking about that. I like those types of videos that will kind of just relate, hey, I'm just teaching you this, I'm not trying to act smart. Super good websites there. It's important if you're going to go to school to find some YouTube channels that you like and you enjoy, because it's going to make a big difference in how you obtain the information in your brain. And then auditory, I went on to podcasts, and there was one I found that was Dr. David Pewter, Psychiatry and Psychotherapy. The only reason I chose this is because I just wanted to get that general feeling of the language in psychiatry. So I just kind of listened to that during my walks, taking my dogs for walks, going to the park, or taking a bike ride. And well, I'm listening to that, which I found very interesting that I didn't notice before, is that I felt like I was part of the conversation. I think that's because before, when I'm listening to other people in a room, sometimes I never felt like I was part of the conversation because I couldn't hear them. And here I am listening to a podcast, and I'm like in the conversation. I can hear every single word. I mean, technology has really expanded my learning, my hearing abilities in such big ways I can't even describe. All I know is that listening to podcasts makes you feel like you belong, even in the hearing world. You don't have to be going to the hearing loss world or the deaf world to feel like you belong. I super love that. And then looking at some supplemental books, which I had ordered separately from my school, just because I'm one of those people that likes things that are very simplified. So the one I got was Clinical Psychopharmacology Made Ridiculously Simple, which is a really good small book to look at. This is super good for like practical pearls, which is always helpful when you have somebody that's seasoned or very experienced in their field and they teach in a simple way like this. They can come up with some pretty awesome ways of making it ridiculously simple. Another book that I got was I have so many books over here. I got this Memorable Psychopharmacology. Now this book was super good because it has mnemonics in it, and I love mnemonics for like side effects and functions and stuff like that, and it's really a good book. If you're doing Psych NP, this is these two so far have been like really helpful as far as trying to memorize things and just kind of get a clear understanding of things outside of that like technical talk that they teach you. Now the last one I did is DSM-5, Insanely Simplified, and I thought it was pretty good because it gave you an idea of looking at diagnoses from a spectrum perspective. So I thought that was really good. Very small book. Okay, so if you want any of those books, if you go into PsychNP, you can just request them. I'll let you know what they are. Okay, so the next one is digital stuff. Digital stuff is super fun in the sense of taking notes. I take notes on my iPad. So this is the Notability app, which I use, and I love it because then I don't have a lot of paper in my office and piling up, because I'm going to have a lot of papers in this program. I can just foresee it. I did in my nurse practitioner, so I can't see why this would be any different. So the next thing I do is the digital art, which is probably one of my favorite things to do because it gives me that opportunity to be creative and be able to get out of my head in a different way and touch on the creative side versus the logical. I like to be on that side, kind of explore different ways of trying to piece the information together and be able to obtain it in my brain. So I use Procreate, which is a drawing app on my iPad. You can download it from your app store. I think it might be on Google. I don't know, where they play or something, games, whatever it is. What is it called? Android? I only have apples, can you tell? Let's go ahead and look at that real quick. So this is really good because I can draw pictures and make associations to concepts that are being taught. And it's just a nice, creative, fun way to remember things. And then when I'm actually going to do testing or anything, I have a visual kind of in my brain because I drew it myself. I mentioned early on that I do index cards. Now, I love index cards because at night when I'm watching TV, super handy just to have in your hand, just watch TV and just kind of look at a card and check and make sure you're right. The other things I do with this is that my husband will be watching TV with me, and I'll say, I don't know how to pronounce prestige or something. So he'll help me with pronunciations of different medications, which is super good. Because I want to be able to pronounce them because there's ridiculously long names for some of these medications or what they're trying to do to us. Oh, and not to mention it has generic names and brand names. Not confuse us anymore. So those are the index cards, super helpful. And then the last thing is, of course, the reading text. So reading texts are boring, and I've been told that, don't waste your time on them. But I will say when it comes to texts that are recommended by the program itself, I do like to go through them, at least have a good idea what each section is talking about. If anything, I would definitely read the summary on each chapter, and that way it will help me attain the technical words that I'll need for when they're on test. I wouldn't avoid textbooks altogether. It's just the last thing I look at. All of these things complement the learning process when I have hearing loss. I can't rely just on listening to things. I need visuals with it. This is why I'm sharing it with you. I'm giving you options so that you can say, okay, maybe I need to add more stuff to my learning process, and that way it will make it easier for you to understand and that you don't feel like you're missing things when you're listening just audio file, which is either embedded or not in the PowerPoint. Why do they do that? I have no idea. But this is the app that I was told about a while back, and I have not yet tried it. If you have tried this speech-to-text thing, go ahead and comment below and let me know how it goes. So being in grad school, there's always going to be writing involved. And with my particular program, they are going to require a APA case study, which is going to be 8 to 10 pages, not including the references. I have to do a paper in that sense. I'm already preparing for it, but I'm not the super best writer. I'm not terrible, but I'm not great. So I need a little help. One thing I use is Grammarly. I love Grammarly. It is easy. You just plug in your Word document or copy and paste your words into there, or you can just go ahead and start typing in there. I'm going to help you have better grammar and make sentences, the structure much easier to read as far as the APA rules go. That's the format that we have to use. Yeah, and with all of that, that was all in one class, right? So I'm still only in psych pharmacology, but I'm kind of glad having this like extra work that I'm doing now and just having an idea how things are presented presented, how to go forward when I actually start the program itself, because that's going to be quite tricky. As I discover challenges along the way, I'm going to put up more videos up, but right now I'll probably, I don't know, I don't foresee that I will do another one while I'm in this class, because I only have another 3 weeks left. But if I do, I'll share. If anything, I'm going to share my update on the Select and the partner mic. That'll probably be my next video. Yeah, so if you have any questions, go ahead and comment in the space below down there, and just, give me your questions or even comments, and if you're going back to school, and for what. I'm not the only one that reads comments, right? Other people out there in the cyberspace world that cares about their hearing loss and going back to school or any other devices that they want to do to make it easier for themselves are down in the comments too, reading. So you might be helping them as well. And while you're there, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Hit the like and also the bell notification so you know about my next video coming up, which will be on these 2 microphones. Hopefully it'll be sooner than later. And of course, if you want to know more about the school progress, then of course you want to hit that bell notification. As always, you can do anything you put your mind to. Take care. See you in the next one. Bye.